Welcome once again to my channel. This time, I'm going to show you how to troubleshoot FSSO issues in DC agent mode. I'm going to base this video on this KB, which is of official Fortinet documentation, and we are going to use this diagram as basis. We are going to explain it and follow the procedure to collecting and attempt to resolve connectivity issues when accessing the internet after authentication. The topology will be as follows. We are going to use Windows and two PCs. A FortiGate directly connected to the Active Directory. They are on different networks, so the traffic to reach Active Directory will be through the FortiGate. To access the internet, it will be through this network. Therefore, as you know, in order to access the internet, the condition is that the FSSO will have to authenticate, and it will have to send the logon events to FortiGate. With that, FortiGate will collect the event, and in the firewall policy, it must have the group associated with the user in order to grant permissions and internet access. To start, when you have the problem of successfully logging into the PC with the user credentials found in the Active Directory and you can't access the internet, as in this case, I'm going to use the Jorge user. However, I don't have internet access, as it says here. The next step is to obtain the PC information, such as echo logon server, NS lookup, hostname, and ipconfig all. Then we open CMD and run the command. It should show us the name of the Active Directory to which it belongs. Let's check the Active Directory. In fact, it resolves the name of the Active Directory. We run NS lookup, and it can't reach the DNS service. By comparison, the IP is incorrect. So, the first problem to solve is that we need to correct the DNS IP. Remember that this is necessary for this solution. It suggests that the Active Directory where the collector is located be used as a DNS server so that it can resolve its own IP. The DNS server must be able to connect to the collector or the Active Directory, which will be the FSSO collector, in order to resolve its IP. We change this. We run the test again. Now it asks for IP 219, so we will continue checking later. We will review the diagram. It says we are going to use the hostname. We use the echo username command to get the username. It is not necessary here. It is necessary to check the PC's configuration parameters to verify that it's within the correct domain, to determine its IP, gateway, workstation, and DNS server. Additional, this command should show us the group to which this user belongs. However, it doesn't show us the configured groups. We check the groups to which the user belongs. This is the way to check the users who belongs to this group. Let's collect this information and continue with the diagram. It says to review step 3. Let's check. If there is a logon event for Jorge, you can see a logon event from the 24th. Incorrect event. According to the diagram, it tells us to go to step 1. Open this section and show how to enable login in DC agent mode. Here show us the solution. In Reddit, HKey local machine software Fortinet FSAE DC agent, and we are going to modify it. We are going to modify the hexadecimal value It says the logs will be saved in the default path. Obviously, the path can be modified. Continuing with the diagram, they say that we need to take note of the mode we are in, whether it's polling mode or DCA. They say we go to the option A, section A, and check. We validate the working mode. Now it asks us if the FSSO is connected to the fabric. We verify if the FortiGate can reach the FSSO connector. It shows that there is no connection. So it says that FortiGate must reach the collector by validating routing, firewall policies, protocol, and connection configured in the Windows firewall. How to set source IP address? Sometimes you have different FSSOs or different interfaces which you can reach Active Directory. One suggestion is that if you have many interfaces, it is suggested that you configure source and IP to specifically define where you will generate your connection request from. It says to verify the FSSO version. It shows you the procedure to perform the corresponding upgrade. However, we can validate if the FSSO version is support. It says it supports FSSO version 5 and later. We will check the version it is on. Show service status, which is version 5. Then it's compatible. We continue with the diagram. And then we return to this part, where it says the password must not contain special characters. We verify that the password doesn't have any special character. The password request here is not to domain administrator password. It is the password configured in the FSSO. Here we realize the IP is not correct. So we're going to modify the password. We will type 1, 2, 3, 4. OK. Click apply. Wait. And now it looks connected. We return to the diagram. It tells us if the connector is still down. Then here are the suggestions to open a ticket with the tag. In this case, we were able to resolve it. And we return to this point. Take notes if the collector agent server is working. Then we go to the step 1. We see that the connector is already working. And it tells us to check if the status is correct here. The status is running. The next test is to lock and unlock to verify if there are logon events. We check the show logon users and refresh. We see a logon event. We see it at 9 hours. However, it is not the one we just can generate because it's 9:48 hours. This tells us to go to step 3. It asks us again to check the Windows logon event. Click refresh, find. It says our last logon was at 9:04 hours, which is incorrect. So we still can't connect to the Active Directory. It asks, are you browsing the internet? No. So let's check the event viewer. We have already done that step. Now it says, do you see a recent event? If so, let's go to this part. But in our case, we don't. Then we will check the communication. It says to go to step 5. Here we have the port list, which indicate the port that must be open for incoming and outgoing traffic. It says that port 8003 is used when the DC agent sends keep alive packets and requests logon events information from the collector agent, or send logon event to the collector when you have SSL enabled. In this case, SSL enabled. For this reason, we don't use that port. We will use port 8002, which will be between the DC agent and the collector agent. Remember that in this case, it's not necessary to validate communication since the DC agent and the collector are in the same Active Directory. The following is TCP port 8001 for the FortiGate and collector agent connection via SSL, which in this case we also do not use. We use port 8000 between the FortiGate and collector agent, and port 8000 also for NTLM. For the output, we use catalog port 3269 for LDAPs groups search with global catalog, and UDP53 for DNS resolution. In this case, for lab reasons, I restrict port access only allowing DNS and ping. Obviously, it won't generate any events because there is no connection at the WMI level. This is the protocol used at the Windows level to communicate between computers that belongs to the same domain. In this case too, for practical reasons, I'm going to allow everything. Now we will go back to the Microsoft Logon event notification for the domain, and the PC should identify these logon events. You can rule out a communication interruption between protocols, which is what I am doing with the firewall policy in this case. If you see that traffic is actually passing, but no logon events are being perceived, then it's necessary to check. What we can do here is run a sniffer. If after ensure that no traffic is being dropped and routing level for WMI communication to work, it's necessary to contact Microsoft support. Let's go back in. Here we see an interaction. We check if a logon event is now seen. It also shows up at 9:58 hours, so the event is not seen. Let's check. It shows an unverified. If there is a ping, we return to the diagram, and we see that there may be DNS issues. It says that the PC must update the IP every time it changes to the server's DNS. Let's move on to point 7. DNS issues. The DNS where the agent collector is instead must correctly update the host names for all PCs. This synchronization must be resolved by the Windows domain administrator. The computer's IP address must be able to dynamically update its IP address whenever it changes. Let's verify this in this case. Jorge 10.5. Some audits are being seen, but the specific events aren't being seen yet. Let's skip this part, okay? Let's review point 4. Let's perform respective validation in the FSSO. Monitoring DC, it shows the correct IP address. Let's check the status. Show log users. The update isn't seen yet. Select domain to monitor. It's necessary to confirm that the domain is correct. Set directory access information standard Set groups filters to improve performance in your FSSO configuration, because obviously you are going to filter the groups you really want to monitor, thus preventing it from monitoring all the groups available in your Active Directory. Let's go to the set ignore user list save. And three different ones appears here, which could be the reason why we are not seeing the logon events. So let's delete one. Lock the PC. And it still won't update. Let's refresh. Find Jorge. There is still no event. We go to the next user. Remove it. And it still doesn't update. Jorge, we remove it. We click OK. We block. We refresh, and the problem persists. We continue here. It says to search by hostname. We'll look for the IP address. If their hostname is correct, we go to the A section. Fabric FSSO. It tells us to add the user group source, so it should be in the agent collector, or with the local LDAP, this refresh to this section. This refers to the user groups being imported from this site. This is the configured one. All the others are default. In this section, it tells you they must match the LDAP. This can be done in two ways. If you have an LDAP server, if your Active Directory where the FSSO is located also has an LDAP configured, or if you have an external LDAP configured within FortiGate but isn't not within the same Active Directory, then you will select local mode. Here you will select the server name, and then you should verify that those groups import into LDAP server correspond to, or that's where the user are located. It says to check the firewall policy and to check the FSSO monitor. In this case, we will check the firewall policies. However, all services are already allowed, so this isn't the problem. You search for the hostname and look for the IP address in the Active Directory to see if it resolves properly. It says it couldn't resolve the IP address. We check the IP address and it's not the same IP address as the Active Directory, so we will make the corresponding correction here. We checked again. Let's check. The IP address still hasn't resolved it. And we verified that we don't have a connection to IP 12.0.0.3. Apparently, the problem was the PC's firmware. Let's block it. Check. And indeed, we already see logon events at 10:26 hours. We can run a test by adding a filter in this case. Let's be more advanced. Oh, before that, to test the filter, the intention is to demonstrate how it looks before the filter and after the filter. Before the filter, we have 51 groups. After the filter, we should only have one group. Which will be this one. Here, we will select the default filter. Now we click apply and refresh, and now we only see one group, which is the filtered one. We check, we already have the event. We check 10:32 hours. We checked 10.32, so we saw that there were two problems. the firewall of the PC on the workstation side, and the DNS, which couldn't resolve the workstation IP. This case still isn't resolved, but it should be resolved here. Let's check again. We skip this part of the ignore list. Here's the problem. The problem is that I'm entering a 0 and it's O. Now it tells us the IP address is 12.0.0.3. So now it's apparently resolved the IP. There are logon events. Now we check if we have internet access. Remember to always do in private mode. To verify that we are avoiding the cache, we still don't have internet access here. However, we already have logon events, okay? According to this, does the user belong to the monitored groups? Yes. Just because we configured it a moment ago, which is this group. So let's go to part A and check this option. If we can't find the problem, then we download the logs from this site. What are these logs? We download them and share them with Fortinet stack. In this case, the diagram ends here. However, we have another problem we need to review on the FortiGate side. We have already verified that communication between the PC and the Active Directory is working, and obviously communication between FortiGate and Active Directory is working, but for some reason it still don't have internet access. So obviously, logically, the next step is FortiGate. Why isn't it allow us to log out of the internet? Let's check if the events are being displayed in FortiView source. Indeed, here is the logon event. So let's check the firewall policy and review the policy that allows us to log out of the internet. Here we have Bulma, who is 12.0.0.2, Shikamaru, who is 15.0.0.2, and we have the groups. So what's the problem here? The problem is that we don't have the David IP address corresponding to 12.0.0.3. When we execute the chain, we verify that we are now able to access the internet, and indeed we now have internet access. This is how you follow the diagram for troubleshooting an FSSO problem. Checking the workstation side, the collector side, the domain controller side, and the FortiGate side. If you have any further issues, the suggest command collect all the information. You can use this command too, as it says here. Refresh all the logon events on the FortiGate and generate new events to verify whether or new events are being received. You can use this command. With their nails done now. These commands can also be executed. These commands request the list of active users, clear the information in FortiGate, All the events that were there will be cleared. It requests that the list of monitored groups be sent and refresh the DCAing information to avoid false positive. And continue with the resolution of the problem. If you have any question, comment or suggestions, or any FSSO labs with more than one collector agent or ADVPN, please don't forget to subscribe in the comments. Hit the bell and share with your brother, grandma or uncle. See you the next time. Bye.